Hey, what's up guys? Henry back, and today I'm going to be showing you how to configure a custom resolver inside of an AppSync application that'll link to Lambda and determine if a user is authorized for a particular business. And you can execute business logic, and you can execute whatever business logic you want to the user depending on who it is, or if they're authorized to do something. So actually I was recording this video just a few minutes ago, and I just realized that it was just too long because I just had so many unnecessary things in there, like creating user pools. So I already set everything up. So that you guys can see what's going on. And I'm just gonna pretty much explain it rather than going through everything. I will still go through a few things though. So let's just get started to make this video short and sweet. We've got our schema right here, which is going to have our mutation. We've got our post model right here, and then we've got a query. So this is just the example schema that GraphQL gave me, AppSync gave me when I created the application. So I'm just going to use this because why not? I also just added a public thing there. That doesn't really matter. I'm just going to delete that. Okay, so for example, I'll just lay out the example here. Say if we have our post data here, and we have our post field, like get single post right here, resolved to, so I already did this, but let's do that. If our single post was resolved to a DynamoDB table, which for example in AWS Amplify, when you push cloud resources, it'll automatically create your resolvers for your queries, and it'll resolve your model queries to a DynamoDB table so that you can get your items from the DynamoDB table. It'll set the resolver to the DynamoDB table, which is great until you need to get like custom business logic in there. So for example, you don't want all of your users to have access to all posts, right? What if a user creates a post and they want it to be followers only? How do we determine which users can query for a post and they're allowed to get the post? Well, VTL templates aren't exactly the best thing for that. That's more kind of an overarching thing, but to do this, you can either create your own like API gateway, or you can just use AppSync, which is what I'm doing today, which I'm showing you how to do today. And we can implement a custom resolver that goes into a Lambda function that implements the custom business logic to determine if a user has access to a post or not. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And then an example, of course, is just a user creates a post, only want followers to view it, right? And then we have this get single post query that everyone has access to. We don't want them to have access to that unless they are an authorized user, right? So just some pre-background stuff on our AppSync API here before continuing. We do have a user pool linked to it, and the user pool would be connected to, say, the application, so that people log in and try to get that authentication token, and then we can pass it into our AppSync API. But on the back end here, I do have a link to our user pool, and I have 2 users created. Actually, I'll just go to it because I think I'm going to create a new user anyways. So here's our user pool. So I have Henry in the user pool, and that's his email, and then I have Henry2 here. So I'm actually going to create a new user just so it's not ambiguous. I'm just going to put like bob at bob.com. So now we have, okay, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so I have Bob now. Account status is force change password. So I'm going to go ahead and change that password in our hosted UI here real quick. Oops, guess I forgot his password already. Okay, yeah, I know it's compromised because I'm literally using ASDF as my password. Okay, so I just changed his password and we should be confirmed now. Okay, awesome. We've got Bob and we've got Henry. Those are the 2 that I'm going to use. So I'm just going to delete Henry too because it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we've got Bob and Henry as users in our user pool. So let's say we want Henry to have access to a post, but we don't want Bob to have access to a post. That's the business logic we're going to implement. That's terrible business logic, especially since we're going to be hard coding stuff. But you could, get, if you're doing this in your application, you should be, querying a table or something to see if they're allowed to, maybe see if they're following a user, and then if they are following a user, go ahead and let them have the post. If they're not following the user, don't let them have the post. Stuff like that, right? So, but the business logic we are implementing today is Henry gets the post, Bob doesn't get the post. Very short, sweet, and simple. So we've got that in our user pool. Sweet. And of course, if we go to queries here, we can log in as the user here. And this is client ID is just 1 for me. This is my hosted UI, by the way, and this is just our without an app secret UI right here. So I can log in as Henry and Bob here to kind of impersonate them inside our AppSync API and get their data. So what we have to do is we have to go to data sources. So first you want to link up our resolver, right, to a single post, which you saw I already had linked up, but I'll show you that again. In the beginning, you will have your data sources empty like this, or if you pushed to the cloud, like using AWS Amplify or something, you'll have like your tables in here. What you want to do is just create, well, first of all, you want to create a Lambda function, which I just did here. And there's plenty of videos out there on how to create a Lambda function. I just went through the default steps and just created this Lambda function. So once you have a Lambda function created, we're going to add it as a data source. So just go to the data source here in AppSync, create data source, type a name for your data source, and just put Lambda function 1, and then select AWS Lambda function. And you can see here we can get like OpenSearch data, we can get DynamoDB table, HTTP endpoint, relational database, etc. But we're going to select AWS Lambda function. We're going to select the region that we're in. I'm in US West 1 right now. And just select that Lambda function that we have, custom AppSync authorizer. And then I'm just going to create a new role, because why not? You can use an existing role, of course, but I'm just going to create a new role for this. And there we go. We have it as a data source now. So all you have to do now is you go to the schema, and then you attach it as a resolver. So attach data source name, Lambda function 1, and then you just save it. Now these two things right here, this is for our VTL templates, more of the overarching thing for like DynamoDB tables, for example. You don't have to enable these at all. Since we're doing a Lambda function, we don't touch these at all, basically. So we're just going to keep it there and then save resolver. Okay, so that should be resolved now, which basically means that when someone hits this endpoint, when someone hits single post with an ID, what it's going to do, it's basically pass these post parameters into Lambda function, into the Lambda function right here, which comes out straight into this event variable right here. So we're just going to go and console log that then so that we can see it. Okay, so we're going to go to our queries. Let's log in as a random user. Let's go to Bob, log in. Okay, so we are here as Bob, and so now we're acting as Bob, and we want to execute a query. Our Lambda function doesn't really do anything yet, so yeah, let's just create like a fake response for now. So I'm just going to create a random response. And we're going to go ahead and follow the post schema too. So the responses, you have to code the responses to follow the schemas. So if it's like a singular post, you're going to want to follow this schema, for example. If you have like an array of posts or something like that, then you want to follow that schema too. You want to just add it as an array of posts, right? But in this case, we just have a singular post. So that's what we're going to return. And post has attributes, ID, and title. So we're going to throw those in there. And ID is not optional. So ID1, we're just going to make a title Hello World with a lot of L's. Okay, though, and then we just want to return our response. There we go. So all our Lambda function doing is acting as a data source. It's just going to return this every single time. It doesn't even matter what we pass in as an IDE, because it'll just return this every single time. And we can demonstrate that as well. So queries, so first deploy it, right? Remember to deploy your Lambda function. And then we're just going to run it actually. So post ID, it doesn't matter what we remember, it doesn't matter what we pass in as an ID, because we're just going to return the same thing every time. So let's go ahead and play it. There we go. We've got ID 1. And actually, we don't have title because we didn't request it. So let's just request the title as well. And there we go. Title. Hello world. So that's pretty simple. That's pretty self-explanatory. And actually, I don't think I saved my schema because I removed public. So I'm just going to save the schema. There we go. And then public should be gone. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, it doesn't really matter what we pass in as the ID. It'll still return the same thing because we have the Lambda function as our data source. So we're good there. Okay, so I console logged out these events so that you can see what's going on and you can kind of authorize each user, because how do we know who's calling the Lambda function, right? And that answer is inside the event variable here. So let's go to our CloudWatch, and to get there, by the way, you just click on Monitor and View Logs in CloudWatch. Okay, I'll just do it for you. So View Logs in CloudWatch. And we should come up here, and you can see we have a log stream now. So I invoked the function 5 times, and let's just look at our latest one. So this is what I'm looking at. So what I'm looking at right here is actually our event variable. This is what's inside the event variable. That is coming out of here, right here. That's what we're logging right here. So you can see that we actually have our user authenticated data in here. We have our Cognito username, Bob. We've got our expiration. We've got a bunch of other stuff, email verified, our user sub, etc. So you can like go, as far as you want with this. If you've got this email, just note that some of these fields are optional, so they might not show up. Even the username, it might be called something else if you're logging in from a different app client. Just make sure you're aware of that. But in this case, we're in the identity, we're in claims, and then we're just going to grab the Cognito username. So identity, claims, Cognito username. So let's just go ahead and code out that. So we can just have his username. So we're in event, identity, claims, and then Cognito username. There we go. Oops. Okay, so this username variable should contain like whoever we're logged in as now. In this case, it's Bob. So this username would literally just be Bob now. So at that point, I think you know what to do. We are ready to just authenticate the user. So so what we're doing is if it's Henry, if the username is Henry, we're gonna return the post. If it's Bob, we're going to give them nothing. We're gonna tell them they're unauthorized. So I'm just gonna make it really simple if else statement. So if the username is equal to Henry, and this is a terrible way to do it, by the way. You should always just query off like a database or something to make sure your responses are consistent. But just for example purposes, I am doing it this way. So literally the entire logic is just an if else statement. So I'm going to make this a variable and then response. Okay, yeah, so, by default, the response is going to be that, but if it's Henry, then I'm going to return a different response. It doesn't really matter, actually, but Henry queried this post. And then if it's not Henry, then we're just going to throw a new error. Unauthorized to access this post. There we go. And then let's go back to our event real quick so that you can see what we're passing in as an ID here. You can see that the ID is in the arguments. I didn't mention this earlier, but the ID is in the arguments thing here. So actually, let's make sure that we've got, it's going to get messy real quick, but let's just make sure that the ID is what we want it to be. So we want the ID to be like, let's say 1, right? So let's just make that simple. So constant post ID is equal to event. Let's find that. We're in arguments and ID. Arguments and ID. And of course, I'm hard coding everything. Of course, you want to make everything dynamic if you can. So we've got the post ID. There we go. Okay. So I'm sorry for this terrible coding, but just for example purposes, if the post ID is equal to 1, then we're going to return this response. Okay. The code here isn't the point, right? Okay. Otherwise, we're just going to return nothing. Okay. If that makes sense. So this is our business logic, right? If the username's Henry, then we're going to check if the post ID is 1. If the post ID is 1, then we're going to return this with ID 1. If the post ID isn't 1, then we're going to return nothing. It's not going to have post. Also in our outer if statement, nested if statements, right? In our outer if statement, if the username isn't Henry, then we're just going to say they're not authorized to access anything. So that's our entire Lambda business logic. Very nice, right? This is top tier coding. Okay, so I'm just going to deploy our Lambda function, and we can test it out now. So with that business logic in mind, let's log in as Bob. Let's toss an ID of 123 and play it. We're unauthorized to access this post. Wow. So we know that a post of ID 1 exists. Let's try querying that. We are still unauthorized to access this post. Darn. Bob doesn't have access because on our outer if statement, it checks if the username is correct. And it's not the correct username. So I'm going to log out of Bob, and I'm going to log in as Henry. So log in. And now we're going to execute this exact same query that Bob executed with this terrible post ID. Let's play it. So cannot return null. Okay, so the reason we're getting this error is because our ID field is not optional. So we don't have an ID field in here. So that's why we're getting this cannot return null for non-nullable type ID. So let's go to our schema and just make the ID field optional by removing that exclamation mark. There we go. And then save schema. I think that'll work. Queries. Okay, and play. There we go. We've got a single post, and actually this counts as a post because ID is null, but we've got one post in there and it's got no data inside the post because our ID is incorrect. But we are logged in as Henry, so it didn't give us an unauthorized error. And then if we just put the ID as 1 and we play it, hey, look at that. We ran into this logic inside our Lambda function. So yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. That's how you run custom business logic inside of an AppSync resolver. Of course, this is terrible logic. You want to include logic that is dynamic, not hard-coded usernames, and perhaps actually getting data from like a DynamoDB table data source. You can just execute some kind of function to return DynamoDB data if they are authorized. So instead of this stuff, you would query a DynamoDB table and then return that data and all that good stuff. But this video was to show you how to actually create the custom logic, and that is what I have done. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, just throw them in the comments. I'll try to answer them if I can help there. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. It's pretty simple, not bad once you get the hang of it. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my video, my channel, etc. Let me know what kind of content you guys want. I am happy to make it. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.